Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another Sree Daily Global Conversation. This is our 53rd show in 53 days. That means we have been on lockdown in New York City, where I'm coming to you from, for 53 straight days. But it's Sunday night, which means we try to be purposeful and positive. Not unrealistically positive, but positive in a way to help inspire you and get you ready for the week. It's Sunday night in New York. It's early morning in other parts of the world, and still dinner time for other parts of America on the West Coast. We have a very, very special show today. So please find me on Facebook, find me on Twitter, find me on YouTube, and please hit share. Please connect with your friends, tag them. Everyone can use some positivity in the middle of all this COVID stuff, and you're in for a really special treat. So please tag your friends, please hit share, and please get this into as many hands as possible. Let me tell you about our guest who is here with us. He's going to join us in a minute. We're calling the show Positively in Awe with John O'Leary. John is the host of the podcast Live Inspired and is one of the most interesting people you will have a chance to meet in these shows that I've been doing, and really one of the most exciting speakers in the world, consistently described as the best speaker we've ever had, according to people who have listened to him, and including clients who have hired him to speak to them. John's emotional storytelling, unexpected humor, and authenticity make each interaction with him truly transformational. So if you're ready to be transformed, this is the show you want to share with your friends. So please hit like, please hit share, and tag your friends. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Sreenivasan, and I am the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism. And we've been doing these daily shows since the day New York City went under lockdown. And I'm joined by our producers, Vandana Menon and Rose Horowitz. They're both tweeting right now on Twitter at Rose Horowitz 31 and Vandana_Menon. They're using the hashtag Sree COVID call, Sree COVID-19 call, Sree COVID-19 call. Please use that hashtag. Please share this with the world. You're going to really enjoy this conversation. Let's tell you about some of our sponsors. We're sponsored by Community Food Bank of New Jersey, which fights hunger and poverty in the state by assisting those in need and seeking long-term solutions. Please donate today by going to cfbnj.org. This ad is brought to you by Nidhi Sinha, who's a great supporter of the organization and a friend of this show. We're so grateful to her for supporting Community Food Bank of New Jersey. We're also brought to you by Muckrack, introducing Muckrack's Fundamentals of Media Relations, a free on-demand 2-hour course and certification. Everybody would benefit from this. Media relations, public relations. Maybe you have a lot of the new skills. Maybe you have a lot of the old skills, but a chance to get a refresher, just 2 hours, and it's free on demand. Go to mrac.co/media, mrac.co/media. It's free and available worldwide. And our final sponsor for today is Pajama Program. For each $10 donation made, Pajama Program will deliver a new pair of pajamas and a book to support a child of an essential worker. How wonderful is that? Thank you to Pajama Program. Please go to this link, bit.ly/pajama1, bit.ly/pajama1. You will get a chance to help a child of an essential worker. Is there a better cause than that now? I'm not sure. So please go ahead and definitely go to bit.ly/pajama1. We are so grateful to our guest, and for everyone who is here, please continue to hit share so that your friends and family can join us. And finally, want to tell you that you can have an ad with us. The rates are really inexpensive. Just email me, sree@sree.net, sree@sree.net. Maybe you don't have something you want to sell, but you have a small business or a nonprofit you want to support. Maybe you want to do a marriage proposal or a wedding announcement or anything like that, or graduation. We also have an ad program that we've put together for Mother's Day that we want to show you. Thank a mom on Mother's Day. So next Sunday, in conjunction with the New York Times read along, where we read the New York Times on Sunday mornings, you'll have a chance to thank your mother. Go to this link, digimentors.link/mothers. Take a photograph of that right now, or take a screenshot, and you'll be able to do that. Look how inexpensive the pricing is. We'll read a message on air to your mom or someone who is like your mom, a mother figure in your life. 50% of the proceeds will go to Nick Kristoff's C19 Impact Initiative. It's a great way to support your mom or someone in your life who's a mother, and also to get the word out and support Nick Kristoff's great initiatives. digimentors.link/mothers. Now, without further ado, let me bring on stage the great John O'Leary, who is visiting us from St. Louis, Missouri. Hi, John.
Hello, Sree.
How are you?
You know, I feel blessed, man. I'm healthy. I'm on the air with you right now, so I'm really glad to be part of this.
And we're so delighted to have you. We're going to tell people your life-changing story and the story of your positivity in times that are very difficult for people to believe. But we always ask, how's your family? How's everybody around you in these COVID calls? That's the first thing we ask our friends.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. So I just left home. My wife and kids are there safely. I have 4 children, 14, 12, 10, and 8. They're healthy. They miss school, which is something shocking for me to say as a parent. So they are ready for school to return, and we look forward to the day when they can safely go back. But generally speaking, the family's fine.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Kids who are missing school, those are very special kids that you have. Let's take a look at where people are watching from. Our friend Cherry's watching from Kerala in India. Mark Lee's watching from Durham, North Carolina. Jonathan Borstein is watching from the East Village. And Steve Taylor's watching from Philadelphia. And Pradnya Haldipur from Silver Spring. And by the way, if you want to respond to any of these cities, you can. Steve says, I look forward to the positive energy from your Sunday shows. Paula Kiger is watching from Tallahassee, Florida. Steve Garfield's watching with us. Thank you. Sonali from LA. So we have a real global conversation coming on here. And we have people watching from all over the world. I'm just so grateful. Peggy's watching from Taiwan, John. So first, you can react to any of those cities or towns.
So I would imagine the majority of your listeners and viewers don't know who I am, so they might be surprised to know, but I've been in every city and country that you mentioned so far. My old job before COVID-19 rocked the world was I was a global speaker. And so I had the great honor of traveling the world, traveling the United States, sharing a story of positivity, sharing a story of hope, ultimately sharing a story of truth, which is not that it's easy, but that it is possible. And I think that story, that idea remains true today, but it's maybe even more important right now than it's ever been. So for those of you tuning in, whether you are down the street in St. Louis, Missouri, or you are around the world in Taiwan, we welcome you and we're glad you're part of this.
Thank you. And let me tell people a little bit about you and some of the incredible work you've done. Just first on the digital side, you have more than 2 million downloads of your podcast. You have a newsletter that goes out to 100,000 people. You've sold more than 350,000 books, and you've spoken to more than 1 million people for 3,000 clients. That's incredible. The question then comes, what are they listening to? What are they getting? And here is the story. You were expected to die, but now you're teaching others how to truly live. In 1987, John O'Leary was a curious 9-year-old boy playing with fire and gasoline. John created a massive explosion in his home and was burned on 100% of his body. He was given less than a 1% chance to live. His epic story of survival has never felt more relevant as we've all experienced the coronavirus epidemic. John is the author of the instant #1 national best-selling book, On Fire, The 7 Choices to Ignite a Radically Inspired Life, host of the top-rated Live Inspired podcast, and an inspirational speaker teaching more than 50,000 people around the world each year how to live inspired. His much-anticipated second book, In Awe, Rediscover Your Childlike Wonder to Unleash Inspiration, Meaning, and Joy, releases on Tuesday. We are so thrilled to have you here, John. People are hearing your story. They're commenting right now. Nirmit says, wow, great to have you here, John. So first, tell me about that experience when you were a kid and how it shaped you. Walk us through that, please.
So Sree, I think the most amazing aspect of my story, and probably all of our stories, is I completely underappreciated how dramatic it was and how worthy it was. I spent the majority of my life trying to cover up the scars that you just referenced. I had my fingers amputated in hospital. So these are my hands. The scars come from my neck all the way down to my toes. The burns were severe. I spent 5 months in hospital, but then spent the rest of my life until 28 trying to hide from them, trying to cover them up, trying to pretend like I was ordinary. So the goal of my life was not to be a motivational speaker or a podcast host or an author. The goal of my life, really, if I'm honest with you, was just to be super ordinary, just to fit in. And what I was trying to become, Sree, was who I thought I wanted to be, which was like everybody else. When you are 9 years old and you are in a house fire and you spend those 5 months in hospital and you spend 5 months in a hospital bed and you spend then years separated from your friends and family, your dream's not to be extraordinary. That's not the goal. The goal is to be radically ordinary, to be gray, to fit in with everybody else. And so that's what I did very successfully for almost 2 decades. And then the story is 3 Girl Scouts asked me to share my story at their troop. And so at age 27 or so, maybe 28, I went, and for the very first time, I shared the story of John O'Leary getting burned at age 9. I had 12 minutes in front of them. So I shared this story. I read my notes the entire time. I never once looked up. That was my first talk. And we've been blessed to deliver, like you mentioned, almost 3,000 talks in front of a couple million people in the 15 years that have followed. So it's a wild journey. I know you've got additional questions you want to ask me around it, but it's not one I would have chosen, but it's one I'm extremely grateful to have experienced.
How did you find the strength to survive and the circumstances exactly of that night? How did that happen, and how did you survive that?
Great question. So the circumstances began in the garage with a 9-year-old boy walking over to a can of gasoline, trying to pour a little bit of gasoline on top of a flame, thinking it would just spark to life. As I approached that can, before I even began to tip the container, the fumes, it's the invisible part that burns you. It's not the liquid. It's the vapor in life. That's true not only for gasoline, but in almost every aspect of life that really matters. It's the invisible stuff that matters most. That day, the vapors came out, created this massive explosion, split the can in two, launched me 20 feet against the far side of the garage, set my world on fire. When we were little, whether it was in Taiwan, India, Southern California, anywhere you grew up, I think we were all taught what to do when we're on fire. We were taught to stop and drop and roll. And yet that day when I was on fire, and I think most days if we ever catch fire, we do what comes naturally, which is to run. And so I ran on fire through the garage, back into my house. Eventually, Sree, I was tackled by my brother Jim. He was 17. He beat down the flames. He carried me outside. He called the hospital. He had the ambulance pick me up. He saved my life. And then you said, John, what gave you that strength to carry forward? I think it's twofold. First is my dad came into the emergency room, and I had not yet seen him since the explosion. And my dad was a phenomenal father, but also a disciplinarian. And I just blew up his house. And so as my father is stepping toward me as a 9-year-old boy, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, the old man is going to kill me. Like the old man is going to freak out on me right now. And instead, Sree, he walked right over to me. He pointed down and said, John, little man, look at me. And so I look up, and then he goes, I have never been so proud of anyone in my entire life. And my little buddy today, this morning, I am just proud to be your dad. And then my father said, John, I love you. I love you. I love you. And as a little boy, sweetie, I crossed my arms, I shut my eyes, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, nobody told my dad what happened. You know, he doesn't know that I burned down his house. He doesn't know that I caused all this, that I'm the reason why I'm in this hospital bed. And yet I think that day, and for the parents in the room who are watching or listening in, we understand the power of parental love, of grace, of unconditional love. And my dad walked in that day. He dumped into my life love. And I think that was power to take the next step forward.
I'm just recovering from you describing that, John. And that day, what was the physical danger you were in from the burns?
So it's 100% burn. That's the entire body. For those of us like me who struggle in math, everything is burned. 87% was third degree. Third degree means the skin will never grow back. If you present in 2020 with 100% burn, what they do is they take the percentage of your body burned. These are the experts around the world. They add your age, and they've got mortality. So in 2020, if a patient comes in this badly burned, it would be 109% likelihood of them passing away, of them dying. This is back in 1987. So there's seemingly no real chance of survival. And yet my father thought there was. And my mother, who came in and took my hand and told me she loved me and told me to fight, told me to take the hand of God and walk the journey with him, she believed that it was possible. The physicians and the nursing staff and the custodial staff, the janitors, the entire team came together around this little boy that had no medical chance of surviving. And they loved him and they encouraged him and they performed miracles. I mean, all of the skin from my entire body came from my scalp. And so surgery after surgery after surgery, they would take skin from my scalp. They would slowly piece this little boy back together, and they would keep him alive week after week. It took them 5 months, but they were able to slowly nurse me back to health.
Nirmit, who's watching in Charlotte, says, wow, you're an inspiration of my day, John. He says, I would love to know who your role models are. We could come to questions like that, but just at this moment, as you're telling the story, and you've told it thousands of times, do you ever think back and say, in addition to the love of your parents, there were moments there that the story could have gone any other direction?
So, Sree, a lot of times people compliment me on being so tough or such a fighter. The wonderful comment out of Charlotte said, John, you're an inspiration of our time. And the reality is, the more you get to know me, the more you'll be less impressed by me. I am the result of so many incredible people doing the next best thing for me. And the calling then is, if that's true in this one case, is it possible that we can be that part in someone else's case? Can we become part of someone else's miracle, someone else's gift, someone else's next step in their life? And I think the answer is absolutely yes. And so who were some of my inspirations? Clearly, to begin with, it was my mom and my dad. They were my inspirations at age 9. They remain my inspirations today at age 43. Like I'm half the man my father is, and I wish I was half the parent that my mother was to me. They're just incredible people. In addition to that, I had a janitor who would come in every single day and clean my floors for little pay. And yet he was mission driven. He did his job beautifully. He took care of a little boy. And while he did so, he would play the radio so that I could hear it. And that little encouragement every morning to keep a boy not only safe from virus, safe from bacteria, but also inspired with music, it can make a profound difference. And it certainly did in my case. There was a Hall of Fame radio announcer named Jack Buck. He was the voice of our team, the St. Louis Cardinals. He heard about the story, and he came in on the second day after I got burned. He encouraged me. He set a goal in front of me saying, John, when you get out of here, we're going to celebrate you at the stadium. We'll call it John O'Leary Day at the ballpark. And even though he was told on the way out that the little boy would not survive, the gentleman came back the following day, and the following day, and the following day, and the following day for 5 months. There were hockey players showing up. We had a letter from Washington, D.C. signed by Ronald Reagan saying he and his wife Nancy were praying. A guy named Pope John Paul II said that he was praying for us. There were trees being planted in Israel. This was an unknown little boy in the Midwest of the United States who had no chance to survive it, and yet the global community came together as one and prayed and worked and strived to bring forward this little boy. And for me, I don't feel like I'm the inspiration of the story. If I was telling a story about how great I was 2,000 or 3,000 times, I would rock myself to sleep every single time. I get to tell the story of how great life is. And man, that is a story with COVID-19 spreading right now. We need the reminder of. We need that possibility alive and well, guiding us forward and drawing us forward as our brothers and sisters keepers. We cannot do life by ourselves, but collectively, I don't think we can fail.
Wow. Here's Ramdas says, wow, incredible survival. And Shafali gives you a namaste there. And Thomas says, we're honored to hear you. And Mark is watching Durham, North Carolina. Says, what an amazing story. And I think we all as kids play with things we shouldn't. I remember playing with gasoline as a kid, but fortunately did not have an accident. And you've obviously been a motivational speaker for adults, but also, I think, a cautionary tale in some ways.
Well, everybody in this room has played with gasoline. Now, some of you are saying, not me, I'm not that crazy. Although almost every male in this chat room has, because every boy does something crazy, but so do ladies, so do we all. We make mistakes. Sometimes it burns us on fire. Other times it burns us in a relationship or with finances or with work or with our own health. We choose behaviors that lead us down a path we know better than choosing, but we slip down that path anyway. And so although it's a cautionary tale regarding gasoline specifically, I think far more than that, it's a cautionary tale on the importance of our choices in life. They can be the cause of death for ourselves and those around us, both literally and figuratively, but they can also breathe life and possibility into our life and also into the lives of those that we choose to serve. So it is a cautionary tale for sure, but I think it's a cautionary tale that ought to drive us not from something, but towards something.
And that's certainly what you've done. Let's talk a little bit about your new book that's coming out. It's called In Awe, and it comes out on Tuesday. Rediscover your childlike wonder to unleash inspiration, meaning, and joy. And this is the website, johnolearyinspires.com. And people can take a look at that and see all the stuff that's here in the book. Let's talk a little bit about, by the way, if they go to the website before Tuesday, I guess, if you on Monday by 11:59 Central Standard Time, you pre-order on johnolearyinspires.com. You got free chapters, you got a digital playbook, early access to the In Awe video series, In Awe inspired quote cards. So a lot is going on, and people will want to definitely get this book. So you can go and get this in any of these places: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, Books A Million, IndieBound, Bookshop, Target, Apple. So all of those places have this. Let's get some early praise for this book. One of the people I admire greatly, Mitch Albom, who also went to Columbia Journalism School, where I graduated from, he says, "Awe comes naturally to children. Somewhere en route to adulthood, we lose it." John O'Leary's engaging new book encourages us to see the world through a child's eyes, and in doing so, rediscover its wonder. And Mitch, as everyone knows, is the runaway bestseller of Tuesdays with Morrie and many other books. And let's do one more praise here from Mel Robbins, daytime talk show host and best-selling author of The 5-Second Rule. Ooh, I want to find out what the 5-second rule is. In a world full of negativity, John O'Leary will remind you that you always have a choice. Life is still good and the best days remain ahead. This is a must-read. You'll be in awe at how John changes your outlook and the possibilities that you will still see present in your life. And I think a lot of us are feeling that right now with the COVID-19, John, there's so many problems. Life looks insurmountable. The problems look completely, too much for us. And you have shown us that you can get through it. What are some things they'll learn in this particular book?
So I think before I even answer that, maybe it's important to understand, why would you write this book? Why write this book, John? You already wrote a book called On Fire. It went to #1. What's the follow-up book? Why spend years investing your time in researching and then in writing this? Here's what I saw, Sree, and I know you have as well. I would walk in and I would see adult leaders almost bored by life. Many times we adults have our arms crossed as we walk through our days. We look down rather than up. We have this sense of pessimism. We deal with life in chambers of isolation. Cigna did a study recently. They found that 54% of us felt as if we were completely isolated. And this was before COVID-19. For 6 consecutive years, we in the United States have had a pessimistic view on what's going to happen next. This is not about Donald Trump or Obama. This crosses administrations now. So it's a chronic issue. And then one more stat to throw at you. 94.5% of news stories were negative. Not this year with COVID-19, with recessionary winds blowing, with everything else we're dealing with globally. This was back in 2018, according to Harvard. 94.5% of news stories were negative. So that's what the adult mindset sees. And then we look around and we see children. And we see them doing something very peculiar. They smile frequently. They look up rather than looking down. They have this raw sense of ferocious optimism. They connect more easily, not only with who they are and their sense of beautiful being, but with one another. They don't judge. They don't have the ego to do so yet. And so the mindset that they viewed the world through is the one that I was hoping to teach adults, that we can return to that. We can rediscover childlike awe. And in doing so, unleash our wisdom, our inner joy, and a little bit of meaning for our lives going forward. So that's the background of an awe. What will leaders get as they read this? It's another great question. One is the resiliency to take the next step forward. I think many of us give up hope on our tomorrows. And so in returning to the sense that children have so naturally, the first sense we unpack, Sree, is the sense of wonder. And wonder in my mind means two things. One is this ability to go through life each day as if it's the very first time you're experiencing that day. Not bored by it, not dreading it, not hating it, not worried about what you did yesterday or what might come tomorrow, but being laser focused on this moment. We call that first time living. First time living. So the more we can step into that, the more we can let go of the past and the future and be more effective in the moment. The second piece that comes out of the sense of wonder is this. Kids love asking questions. And eventually we as parents or as teachers say, stop asking, just go to bed. Stop asking, the sky's blue because that's the way God made it. Stop asking why. But in doing so, we begin to suffocate their curiosity. And it's not only the question why that we begin to suffocate, it's the question of who says, or what if, or why not? Could things be better? And so in this book, we try to teach people why we lose the ability to ask those questions, how to return to it. And in doing so, what might happen not only in our own personal walk, which is really important, but I think far more importantly, universally, what can we do as a society of one?
Society of one. That's an interesting way of looking at that. We have so many questions and comments coming in. We want to just tell everybody to continue to hit share so your friends and family around the world can join us. I know you've already been inspired by this, but all of you will benefit, all your friends and family. Just tag them, even if they're busy on a Sunday night or very early where you are, they can still benefit from this because they can watch the replay, and they can go to readinawe.com so that they can learn more and learn. As you can see, you can also follow him on Twitter. J O'Leary Inspires on Twitter that's his handle. And please continue to share your comments, which I will read to you in a few minutes. In the meantime, we just want to look at this book and see what's here. In addition to these folks, there are so many books, John, about positivity, about inspiration, about motivation. Did you read a lot of other people's books before writing yours? Some people like to do that. Some don't read other people's books because they want to come at it fresh.
The answer to your yes or question, either or question, is really yes and. And so I read a lot of books. I'm a pretty voracious reader. I do enjoy reading. Another blessing of my life is I get to not only speak on the stages of life, but I get to interview great leaders in life. And so I also, like you, have a podcast. And in order to prepare for interviews, you read people's books. You get to know their take. You get to know their lives. And so I really enjoy that aspect. But for in all, we wanted to create something that we don't think has really been done before. This isn't about learning something new. I think, 2,700 years ago, there was a quote that said, there is nothing new under the sun. So it's an old scriptural quote. There is nothing new under the sun. So 2,700 years ago, humankind was bored by what they saw. There was nothing new way back then. So I'm not trying to create anything new. I don't need to give you a new checklist to do or new ideas to grasp onto. What I wanted to do in this book is to remind you what you knew. We knew these things to be true. The child was you. The one with great optimism was you. The one who smiled all the time and grabbed people and pulled them in tightly. That was you. And so I wanted to remind people what it felt to be a child. You felt that way at one point. How you lost that, how we can indeed return to it, and in doing so, what might happen in our lives.
Isn't it true that right now people are now spending more time with their children than they expected, especially with all the, the places being closed and things like that, and office and working from home? What are some of the stories you've heard, or maybe even your own? You have 4 children, but you, I gather, work a lot from home, and your schedule is a lot more flexible perhaps than others. What are some of the things that will stick with you through this lockdown period?
So I'd like to take it personally and then more pluralistically, so everybody else can step in alongside of me. But personally, to this, I speak about 100 different days a year. And when you speak that frequently, it also means you're gone that frequently. And so for me, I have had, for the first time since I married my wife, 61 consecutive nights at home. By far the most nights I've had with my children, making them dinner, waking up with them in the morning, having breakfast with them, coming home from work, joining them for lunch, going outside, shooting baskets, throwing the frisbee, playing ping pong, cuddling them, laying on the grass, watching the sky turn from bright blue into dust and into stars. In other words, enjoying life again, enjoying life. And so these 61 days, Sree, have been incredibly beneficial for me as a man, for me as a leader, as a servant, as a sojourner in life, and as a family. The second thing I'll say for our other listeners that may not have kids, I would imagine, though, some of them have watched the show Groundhog Day. So for those of us who've ever seen Groundhog Day, or you feel as if you're living Groundhog Day right now in your apartment, in your condo, wherever you're taking this call from tonight, it's important when you think back on that movie that we recognize what took place in that movie. So Bill Murray, he's the actor in the movie who keeps repeating the same day again and again and again. Eventually doesn't get bored by the day. He becomes better in the day. Bill Murray learns a new language. He learns French. Bill Murray learns how to play an instrument he had never learned before. He learns how to play the piano. He learns how to ballroom dance. He learns when a kid is going to fall out of a tree so he can be there to catch him. He learns when a gentleman's going to get sick at a restaurant so he can be there to give him the Heimlich maneuver. Bill Murray becomes the best version of himself in that day that seemed like it was a boring day on repeat. And in doing so, he finally breaks the binds of that day. He becomes a better version so that when life returns to normal, he did not return to who he once was. He returned to become a much better version of who he was called to be. And I think leaders on this call tonight, we can use this terrible tragedy to propel us forward as individuals, to grow in hobbies, to learn languages, to learn the piano again, a guitar, whatever it might be, learn how to sing, call old friends, write love letters, learn about astronomy, learn life. And so I beg our leaders right now who are with us, Sree, right now to not waste these days. I hope as we come through the storm, we do so not only individually, but collectively far better because of it.
Thank you. I'm just showing people your website. This is just a hint of what your speaking life is like. And before all of this, I presume a lot of this is now virtual, John, but just look at the kinds of companies, that you were talking, the Western Bankers Association, Health Connect Partners, the American Burn Association, is kind of obvious to some ways, but look at the Citizen Bank of La Cruces and White Young Professionals Organization of Chicago, the Salvation Army of Kent County, global companies, tiny companies, regional companies, all of them are represented here under your speaking. And then you've got this huge podcast that has had more than 2 million downloads. And here are the recent episodes. What are some of the things they would learn from listening to you?
So what I do as an interviewer, and I've noticed you because I followed several of your shows as well, I think a great interviewer asks the question and then gets out of the room. And so what I do is I bring on people better than me. I bring on people smarter than me. I bring on people more adventurous than I am, more creative, more influential. And I ask them questions that I think every listener wish they could ask them if they were in the room. And then I duck out of the way and let the individual take it. So that's one thing, is you'll learn that John O'Leary has learned to ask a question and then silence himself, which is, I think, healthy in this case. Another thing you'll learn is that everybody's got challenges that they're dealing with. I bring on really successful people from time to time, and yet they have the story of overcoming challenge and tragedy. I think it is in overcoming those events, whether it was in childhood or early in their business or early in their marriage or after that bankruptcy, that has allowed them to become a little bit more filled with grit, a little bit more filled with faithfulness and courage and compassion, and then a little bit more mission-centered in life to overcome the obstacles that would come their way later on in life. And so for those of us who are trying to dance over every pothole, I think sometimes we must stumble to learn how tough we are, how to bounce forward, and how fragile and also how beautiful our life is. So I right behind you right now, the camera is on me, but right behind the camera is a wall of about 100 guests that we've had on. And every one of them has a remarkable story. And all of them are tied, this thread that pulls all of them together. Challenge. Every one of them has overcome massive adversity to get to that level of success.
Wow. This is so inspired, John. This is amazing. You've also, the way you put everything together online, I think is also inspiring for folks. Maybe you can walk us through a couple of these. The most listened to of all time with Mel Robbins. What was special about that? What made that the most listened to of all your podcasts?
So Mel has a terrific story. She's a terrific storyteller. She's incredibly articulate. You see her up there right now. I'll be seeing her on Thursday this week. She's a friend of mine. She's got a huge social platform herself. I believe her book, The 5 Second Rule, has sold maybe 1 million copies, probably more at this point. So she's highly successful. In addition to being a great storyteller, she teaches you how to own the possibility within your days in a very singular, specific way. And for her, and she's done all kinds of research around this, is anytime you're at an inflection point, anytime you're deciding whether you should or should not do something, and you're leaning toward not doing it, mentally count down from 5 and then do it. And so for her, it's like a little baby spaceship. You just, every single time, get out of bed. Don't pick up the cigarette. I'm not going to drink again. Whatever the thing is that you're choosing yes or no between, shut your eyes to the 5-second countdown. And I know this sounds crazily simple, but some of the most sophisticated things in life are this cell phone I have in front of me. What makes this cell phone so genius is not the complication and how sophisticated this thing is. It's actually how incredibly simple and intuitive it is for us users to use. So I think she gave our listeners something very intuitive, something that they could apply. And because of that, people wanted to share. And as you know, Sree, the more people share, the more people listen, the more they download, the more they benefit.
Absolutely. And we want to remind everyone, please do all of that. Share, download, retweet, tag your friends. Everybody should hear the story of John O'Leary. Please follow him, J. O'Leary Inspires on Twitter, and readinawe.com. And the book drops on Tuesday. Until Monday night, there are all kinds of fabulous offers. If you go to the website, if you pre-order right now on any of those platforms. And when we were prepping, I was asking John, how much where do I send people? And he said, just let us tell stories. And that shows you the importance of storytelling and what we're doing. He's obviously a master storyteller. I'm just looking at some of these others on the screen here. Obviously, these are topics you care about. Cancer and illness, entrepreneurship, baseball. Let's talk about baseball. We should be right in the start of the season. The good news, of course, is everyone's team is undefeated at the moment. But you're in a great baseball town, a great sports town. What is it like for you in your life not to have sports, for your children, your friends, your buddies?
Yes, another beautiful question. I believe, and I'm probably going to offend a few of my friends. So one of our clients is a team called the St. Louis Cardinals. One of my dear friends that I live near and worship with is a guy named Mike Gersh. He's the general manager for the St. Louis Cardinals. In the book On Fire, I wrote extensively about my love for baseball and my love for the St. Louis Cardinals and the impact that their team had on a 9-year-old boy. In our new book, it's called In Awe, I write about the mistakes I made in a relationship that changed my life. And a lot of it ties back into baseball. So we're a baseball family. I love baseball, but I will say this, Sree, because baseball's not on, because all activities on the nights and weekends have been canceled, because the TV's got the same programs running again and again and again, what I'm experiencing as a dad is a lot more family time. I'm looking at something not like other 9 guys living their dreams. I'm usually looking at one child over here with brown eyes staring back at me, and then one kid over here with blue eyes, and then a little girl with blonde hair and blue eyes staring back at me. And it's sacred time. It is sacred time. So part of me hopes that when baseball returns, and I hope it does soon, that I don't return to idly sitting back, just passively watching. I want to actively live life. I want to actively parent. I want to actively lead. I want to actively cheer. I don't want to just passively watch life go by anymore.
Oh, this is a prescription, folks, for everybody who's a parent, to hear what we can get out of this downtime, what we should have all gotten already. Some of us are thinking, my goodness, we wasted 50 days or 60 days, and you're inspiring us, John. Thank you so much, folks. We have just about 15 minutes left with the great John O'Leary, a wonderful storyteller with an inspiring story. If you are joining us late, at the age of 9, he set himself on fire, and he spent, he said, his first 28 years till the age of 28 hiding from who he was, and now is going around the world teaching all of us how to live better and how to gain the most from life. And he has an incredible new book that's coming out, that's dropping on Tuesday, as they say. I'm trying to be cool here, John, using words like dropping. And the website.
You're above me, man. I don't know how to use words like that.
But I'm also older than you, and you can go to johnolearyinspires.com or go to readinawe.com, and there you will learn everything about what he's doing. Look at all these companies that he works with, StarKist and MetLife and Pepsi and Lego and Southwest, and all these companies have learned from him, and we're learning from him right now. You can book him to speak at your organization. And one of the things that I will say, John, that people should know is a little bit about the backstory through your first book, which is called On Fire: The 7 Choices to Ignite a Radically Inspired Life, which everyone can get at all good bookstores. And it's also on sale at certain times of the year, and people can get that. You know, money is an issue for people, and I see on your website you're giving away so much good content, including the podcasts and everything. How do you decide how much to charge, when to charge? What is your kind of business model for what you're doing? And I presume there's an entire wonderful team that you're working with. Talk about the business side, please, and how have you been affected by this?
Wow. So there's a lot there. You got like 15, 20 minutes left, and your question would require 4 hours to answer thoroughly. So I'll give you the penny tour of our business, but we have a total of 7 team members that work with us at Live Inspired. How do we decide what to charge? I'll answer it this way. I've always been mission centered. And so when we began speaking 15 years ago, those 3 girls got charged nothing. I wasn't motivated by money to share the story with them. When we went on afterwards to speak to a group of 46 volunteers a couple months later, there was no fee. And then a few months after that, there was no fee. And then you do that again and again and again and again and again. You recognize, if I don't put some value on this, I'll lose my marriage. I'll lose my health. I'll lose the ability to parent my kids effectively. And so we kind of price ourselves as a speaker, right where the market says we are. We actually think we're below what our value is. But I don't work for money, man. We are driven out of mission. And so even online right now, we're creating a church model to support people. If you don't have the assets to afford John O'Leary at various programs that we offer, you can pay what you can. Like, I don't want money to ever be an excuse why we can't work with some individuals, some organizations. So that's part of what we're doing. Another piece that we're doing is there's a book coming out, like you mentioned, in 2 days. The book is called, there it is, people, In Awe. It's an awesome book.
No, hold it up again.
I really am. Like, I'm so excited for this book and for the impact that it's going to have on the community. What we also know is that the world is struggling right now, and that a lot of communities are devastated during this crisis. And so as we thought through this organizationally, even though our income streams have dried up to a degree, we wanted to be generous. I think it's very easy, Sree, to be generous when life is handing you out dollar bills. It's very easy to pass it through. But what if it's not? Then what do you do? How are you generous during that season? So what we wanted to do is we wanted to be generous during all seasons. And so we're giving away 100% of our royalties from this book for all pre-sales and for the first week of sales into an organization called Big Brothers Big Sisters. I was a little. I also was a big. I was a big twice. I'm a board member for Big Brothers Big Sisters. I see the incredible impact that they have globally, they have nationally, and they have in my backyard. And so we wanted to step alongside of them and support them financially, support them by giving them shout outs like I did right here, because they're the ones helping these kids take the next step forward in their journey. And so if we all can get behind worthy organizations, whether it's Big Brothers Big Sisters or one in your own backyard, we can not only get through this storm, this difficult time together, we can come out of this thing far better because of it. And that's my hope with the work that we're doing today as an organization.
Amazing. I want to applaud, but I don't want to waste time because we want to make sure that people get as much out of this conversation as possible. I'm going to read you some comments from LinkedIn, John. A question came in here from our friend Sansi Rajan, who says, great story and indeed an inspiration. John, what was the role of your faith in your healing, and what do you do now with faith?
Awesome. Thank you for the question. And faith guides everything I do. I don't think I need to lead with it in every sentence or every speech or every podcast or interview, but it's in every word I share. It's in every smile that I'm able to glance back at the camera with. It's in every smile when I watch the sun rise, but also when I struggle. I mean, I'm in pain physically. I deal with stares. We're dealing with the headwinds of coronavirus spreading nationally and internationally, and that is affecting our business. And yet, even still, I choose joy. I choose joy because for me, a strong faith guided me through that crisis as a child. We have a Christian faith background. That's what guided me through as a child. That's what guides me forward today. But I think the God we worship is so big. He's so big, so loving, so full of grace. And I believe that God has guided me through these incredible epic journeys looking backward, and certainly can take us through these little minuscule potholes moving forward. So I know where I'm here. I know where I'm going. And for me, it gives me great peace and satisfaction along the journey.
Amazing. Peter says, what was your one thing you remember being in awe about from when you were a child?
Wow. So, man, I got to tell you, there was a radio announcer for the Cardinals, and he would bring different baseball players in to visit me every day. And so when you're 9 years old, and we're from all over the world on your channel, so it could be cricket, it could be ping pong. Pick your sport, then take the best announcer from that sport, and then have that person bring in the best players from that sport. That's what I'm experiencing. So I'm tied down to a hospital bed as a kid. I'm on a morphine drip. The days are hard and long and painful, but every day the door opens up, some announcer walks in, and he brings another player. And for a little boy to see his heroes come into his room, and usually they didn't say much. I'll put it to you that way. They weren't overly talkative, but their presence was enough. And for me, Sree, it's a reminder, whether it's on a podcast like it is right now with you, or it's visiting someone else in a hospital room, or just being with a friend on a park bench. It's not how wise you are. It's not the words you say frequently that will move someone's heart. It's having the desire to be fully with them in that moment, to remind them that they're human, you're human, we're in this thing together, and we will get through this thing together. And so I mentioned earlier a society of one. I believe that. I know that sounds obnoxiously like 1960s flower childrenish, but I believe this virus will, in fact, if we pay attention to it, remind us how one we are. Walls can't keep out a virus. Missiles can't fight against a virus. Passports won't protect you against. It's not going to help, man. And so what does ultimately is rolling up our sleeves, dropping the ego, and coming together as one.
Wow. And you are certainly inspiring us. Nirmit says, I wish him all the best. I'm getting it now. Great time to read. So there we're selling books here. And the Twitter handle is J O'Leary Inspires on Twitter, and readinawe.com is the book. And one of the things, if you go to the book, the website, I noticed, John, is a 21-day challenge to spark inspiration, meaning, and joy. Give us a taste of that. I think some people are ready to be challenged on, and some people are like, I cannot do more baking. I cannot learn more things. I don't do this. I'm barely holding it together, John.
So I think that piece that you brought up is really important to begin with, to give yourself a little bit of grace during this crazy season. There was no handbook for enduring a pandemic and a global recession. Like I did not have that class in college. I don't think any of us read it because it's not yet written. We're writing it with every step we take each day. And so to begin your journey forward from this evening, grace, and just give yourself a permission to make some mistakes along the way. That's an important first step. So you asked about the 21-day challenge. Here's what I know. 2 years ago, when markets were at all-time highs, when unemployment was at all-time lows, when life seemed to be going perfectly along locally, nationally, and internationally, 94% of news stories were negative, so start there, and 1.5 million Americans attempted suicide. So 2 years ago, when everything seemed to be going along pretty well, still 1.5 million people no longer saw value in taking the next step forward in their days. And then we see COVID-19 show up, and then we see people being sent home, and then we see this forced isolation, and we see people losing income and losing hope. And so my organization and I just saw this desire to bring people together, to provide a little bit of hope, and to remind them that there's reason to keep moving forward in their lives. And so if they visit me at readinawe.com, and I'll say it one more time because I know I talk fast. I'm pretty fired up tonight, but it's readinawe.com. At the very top of that page is an email sign up. Drop in your name, hit send. And then tomorrow morning for 21 days, a really simple challenge. Sometimes it might be cooking up some brownies or something like that. But usually it's calling a friend. It's writing a love letter. It's looking outside and taking note of what you see. We adults frequently miss the grandeur of the miracles taking place right in front of you. Kids remind us we don't have to, and they remind us of the beauty of taking inventory of what is right there for us to see. Cut away the cataracts.
John, thank you so much for these great words of inspiration and lots of ideas. Nishant is watching in India where it's in the morning now after 7 a.m. And here it is, almost 10 o'clock here and almost 8 o'clock for you in St. Louis. And Nishant says, good morning. What should be the next task after a morning workout every day during lockdown?
Yes, well done. Well, and I would tell you this, if it works after lockdown, let it continue to work after post-lockdown. So it's odd. What seems to work for us, we stop doing once it works, right? So we'll eat healthy, lose weight. That worked. Now we can eat crud again. So it's important that what works for us during this difficult season, once the normal season, the normal way of life returns, let us not return fully to it. Don't forget the lessons you're being trained in right now. So it's a beautiful question. Here's my morning ritual. I get up every day before the sun is up. I walk downstairs. I might make either a cup of tea or coffee. I walk outside of the screen porch. I look east with a journal in my hand, and I wait for it. The birds usually beat me to it. Somehow they know it's coming. They start singing. They start making this little orchestra, getting ready for it. And then all of a sudden, through the darkness, light returns. And as the sun cuts through the darkness again, it happened again. It should blow our mind every morning. I have a journal in front of me. It looks a lot like this one, but it's the one I keep at home. And I begin with a question, why me? And then, Sree, I'll just start filling it up with reasons why I feel blessed today, why I feel grateful, why I feel like the luckiest guy in the world every day. And it's not BS. It's not bold. It's not platitudes. It's sincere. And sometimes it's directional. For instance, and I wrote about this in the book, but I spent 1 year on those mornings writing a love letter to my wife. She didn't know I was doing this at the time, but I realized I was not only taking my life for granted, I was taking my wife for granted. So every morning as the sun rose, I would write, Dear Beth. And then I would tell her one beautiful thing she did the day before for our kids, for our community, walking down the stairs in a beautiful dress, whatever it was. And then on Christmas morning, I gave her this book that she read that moved her to tears. It's by far the best thing I've ever given her. But it's because I slowed down long enough to identify the reasons to count my blessings. And we will not count them if we race into our day or through our workout or into our work. And so from India, wherever you live, whatever challenges you face, wherever the sun is right now, yours is beginning to rise, ours is beginning to fall here in the Midwest. Count your blessings and watch how it starts multiplying the blessings in front of you.
Wow, John. I'm just, my parents are watching right now. I just noticed in Facebook, they both commented and they're there, my dad and mom, and I'm not going to see them for months because getting to India where they live is very hard. What do you say to parents who are going to be apart from their kids of all ages? You're 43, I'm 50. When I was 42, I went home to India, and one of the things my dad did was he noticed I borrowed his shirt, which I always do because I don't have to carry as many clothes. And then he started ironing my clothes. And I said, a father's work is never done. And so, reflect a little bit on that parental children connection, that even though we're far apart, I'm not going to get on a plane, go 20 hours anytime soon. I won't be allowed to. And then I may not be able to. Right. My family may say, don't come. Like all kinds of things can happen. So talk about that, please.
So this time of crisis can build a higher wall between you and your family. And that family could live with you. Your mom and dad could be in your same apartment and it could still build a higher wall between you. So it's important we recognize the possibility of that and the desire we have in our hearts to break those walls down and to build more structured bridges. So how do you build a bridge then, John? One is I'm during the season, now we're 61 days in, I pray very methodically for my parents every day. And I'm not sure I used to do that. I used to be grateful for them and I have a great mom, but I'm not sure I used to really thoughtfully pray for my family. So in whatever your faith background, you may want to hold up your family in your thoughts and prayers. That's one idea. It's been very beneficial for me, in part because it also guides my next step. I am able physically to visit my parents. They live 10 minutes from where I'm taking this call tonight. I can't hug my mom though. I can't hug my father. My dad has had Parkinson's disease for 31 years. He's at high risk now of something like COVID-19 claiming his life. And so we're being very protective of my dad. But I've written him a couple letters. I've sent him a lot of emails. I text him pictures of me. We send him videos. We swing by. We bring him milkshakes. We let him know we love him. And so in any capacity for the kids out there and for the parents, because I think the parents are sitting at their phones having a pity party frequently, waiting for it to ring. As my mom always says, honey, the phone works both ways. Letters work both ways. Emails work both ways. FaceTime works both ways. Let's make sure we're crossing the dots and crossing the the T's and dotting the I's as we make sure that the other, whoever the other is, knows how much we love them and how grateful we are for them and how much we miss them and how we can't wait to hold them again.
Yeah, amazing. One of the people I got to interview in this phase of COVID-19 was Harlan Coben, the great best-selling author. And he has 3 Netflix shows at the same time right now on Netflix. And he said something that I won't forget, just like so many of the things you've said today. He said, you bring your own weather to the picnic.
That's
and
awesome.
that means no matter what is happening, you bring your own weather. Talk about that as a concept. And I know you live your life, if not to those words, similar words.
Well, I think the world is selling us happiness, and happiness is getting the new iPhone 17. And then pain is when I drop it and the screen breaks. You know, that's how quickly we go from being on top of the world to being buried by it. And so when you go to the picnic, to use your great guest idea, you do have to decide what kind of weather you're going to order up, because it's not always going to be what you desired on the front side. And so I like to say that you can't always choose the path that you walk in life, but you can always choose the manner in which you walk it. You can choose your level of contentment. You can choose your choice around gratitude. You can choose the conviction that you show up not only to serve yourself, to see what you can get out to make yourself more successful, but how you can invest yourself thoroughly in those around you to be more impactful, more life-giving, more significant. And so I think being the weatherman, not waiting to see what the clouds do, but telling them what they're going to do is utterly important for a truly successful, significant life.
All right, we have just a couple of minutes together. I'm going to read a couple of comments here. Avinash says, John, very inspired by you and your lecture. He's calling it a lecture. I would like to continue to inspire others. I'm an engineer of 78 years age.
All right.
With my daughter, Ashima, working for a waste management company in Florida. And she's an angel. He's talking about his daughter. And I imagine she's not a little kid, right? He's 78. But something about parents. And by the way, fathers and daughters have a special relationship, right?
Well, there's a daughter right over my right shoulder. If you can look over there, that little blonde girl. I have 3 boys, and then I have the one that gets whatever she wants, and it is my daughter. And I want to speak to your 78-year-old engineer for a moment. In chapter 24 of this book, In Awe, I write about a man who was 98 years old and still working. He was responsible for 26 business owners. They all reported up through him. And so you can retire at 50 and spend every day playing golf, and people will applaud that. But I think you will be bored to pieces in doing so. Or you can be like this phenomenal engineer out of Florida and choose every day to invest yourself in worthy endeavors. It could be hobbies, but it might be work. And my friend Pat Hinman out in San Diego worked every day until he was 98 years old. A remarkable guy. 77 years of marriage, just a great example of being a kid, being childlike until the very end.
And wow, that's great that you and you also learned from him, right? Being around our elders, and that's one of the saddest things that I'm seeing now: people dying alone without a chance to say goodbye, parents and children saying goodbye or through glass panes or through glass on your FaceTime. We had a family where a family friend whose father passed away, and they were not even allowed to visit. I mean, how do you recover from something like that if you're the ones left behind?
So my grandmother passed away last Friday, so 9 days ago.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect you to, and it is tragic. And here's what we try to do: we try to live it forward. We try to live forward with what Grandma Caddy is her name, Caddy Kilker, one of the most life-giving, joy-filled, forgiving, content women you've ever met anywhere. Grew up in the Great Depression, really without a father, all kinds of struggles up and down her life, and a constant grin on her face, Sree. And so she brought the weather to the picnic, and the weather called for sun because she insisted upon it. And so now we can talk about Grandma in ways that are life-giving. That's one way to keep them part of our lives. We can recognize we'll see her again in eternity, we believe. But the other way, maybe one of the most important ways, is to live for her, to live like her, to reflect her goodness in every room that we walk into.
Yeah. Anne says, there's a crummy time to be away from your children. Mine are all grown-ups now, but I miss them even more now. And John, our condolences. Sounds like a great lady. And but you will continue to talk about her and bring her joy to the world. I do know that. Renee says, I'm in awe of John O'Leary inspires, and Sree, for your desire to help others. Anne says, being content is a real skill.
It's real work, too. And I think all of our faiths, regardless of where we're coming from or lack thereof, what we desire more than anything else. It's not all the money. It's not all the other things that you can kind of mark in your accounts or have on your Facebook feeds. It is ultimately pure contentment in any situation, pure joy. Joy and contentment are very similar words, actually. And so the goals of our life ought to be ultimately not just to climb the corporate ladder, which is fine. I love climbing high too. I love top line revenue and bottom line profitability. But the real goal of our life should be leaning that ladder against the wall that really matters. I think, Sree, nothing would be more miserable than becoming successful at things in life that don't matter.
And many of us are, right? Because we picked the wrong things to be to be successful in. I just want to remind people, please go to readinawe.com. And if you're watching this live, it's basically Monday morning in parts of the world. By Monday night in St. Louis, if you order the book, if you pre-order, you will get you have to send a digital receipt to Abby at this address, and you get free chapters, In Awe digital playbook, early access to In Awe video series, In Awe inspired quote cards, updates on behind the scenes happenings with John as we near book launch and beyond. So everyone, please go to readinawe.com. Please get this book. I know I'm going to do that because there's so much awe in the world, and we need more of it and more wonder. And before we let you go, John, just a couple of quick comments and thoughts. One is, how are you going to prepare for launch day in terms of getting ready? This is old hat to you, but for a lot of us who have new projects and things, we're always nervous. Are you nervous?
You know, what's so cool is launching this in a pandemic has taken all control away from me. And it's a reminder again that you never had it in the first place. And so we think that we ordain our lives. We think that we decide what happens tomorrow morning or on Friday afternoon. And the reality is we can put our oar in the water, but man, that water is raging. It is moving quickly. And so you've got to sink your oar deeply, and you've got to navigate toward true north. But you also got to recognize it's a mighty river. And so the beauty of recognizing that is, I don't have control over this. I'm holding it with my hands wide open, as always. I'm enjoying the fact that instead of being gone 4 days this week, I'm going to be home every single day for breakfast. I'm going to be home every day for lunch, and I will be home every single evening for dinner to tuck my kids in. And so rather than telling you about the book, here's the crazy thing. I'll be living it. I'll be actually living the ideas brought forward within the book and on. I'm grateful for this season to do so. And I believe the book's timing is perfect. It was written to encourage us to slow down, to remind ourselves again what actually matters so that we can seek and see joy in everything. And here we are during the season where we are slowed, where we are being forced to identify again what really matters and what we want to do next in our journeys. And I believe In Awe will be a beautiful companion for the journey.
Absolutely. And we wish you the very best. The book is called readinawe. The website is readinawe.com. The book is just called In Awe. And you have to learn more about it by checking him out on Facebook. Getting his podcast, Live Inspired, is the name also of his company. J. O'Leary Inspires on Twitter. And you really have inspired. You live up to your Twitter handle, which is not easy for many folks. John, any final words of wisdom, any insights you want to leave us with? And thank you for your time.
Yeah, just as you were saying that, the thing that came to mind is we did the math for this book and the likelihood of us being alive. Because you mentioned to be in awe. Like, how do you get in awe? Well, what if you ran the numbers on the likelihood of you being alive? Whether you're in Taiwan, you're in India, you're in Southern Cal, or St. Louis, Missouri. What's the likelihood of you being alive? The likelihood of your mother and your father connecting at just the right time. And the odds are this, Sree and my friends, less than 1 in 400 trillion. So the likelihood of your DNA being part of your DNA, making you the perfect human being that you are, you are perfect. You are perfectly created. It's less than 1 in 400 trillion. So as I invite you to be in awe tonight, don't just wait for it. Like, look in the mirror and see it. Your life truly, mathematically, you are a miracle. Savor that tonight and then live boldly into it throughout the day.
Live boldly into it. Great final words from the great John O'Leary. John J. O'Leary Inspires, and his website is readinawe.com. John, we want you to have a safe week and safe year, and wish you the very best with this book. We know you're going to continue to inspire so many people. I'm going to say goodbye to you, and one of the funny things I do on this that most people don't realize, and they wonder why I do it, is because people join us throughout, I reintroduce the guests so that people will be inspired to watch the rerun. But we won't make you sit through any of that. We want to wish you the best and good luck. And thank you so much for your time. I'm just so grateful.
Sree, blessings, my friend. Thank you very much.
And we'll see you see you online. Thanks, everybody. That was John O'Leary. I hope you're as inspired as I was by him, by his energy, by his ideas, and by his smile, folks. Did you see that? Can you imagine, as I'm going to reintroduce him to you, he was 9 years old when he had an accident that he caused, as he tells us, and through the accident, he was burned 100%. And he then, this was 1987, and while playing with fire and gasoline, John created a massive explosion in his home and was burned 100% of his body. He was given less than 1% chance to live. His epic story of survival has never felt more relevant as we all experience the COVID-19 pandemic. He's the author of the instant #1 national best-selling book on fire, The 7 Choices to Ignite a Radically Inspired Life, host of the top-rated Live Inspired podcast, and an inspirational speaker teaching more than 50,000 people a year how to live a better life. He has more than 2 million listens to his podcast. He has hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people who follow him and love him, and we are grateful to have him here. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you will continue to tell people about our show, and so that I can tell you about what's coming up tomorrow. We have another fantastic guest. This is what we call an epic series of guests. We're going to be joined by Vikas Khanna. Vikas Khanna, many of you know, is a celebrity chef in New York. He's a filmmaker. There you can see him with 2 Obamas for the price of 1 photo. And he has just distributed 2 million meals to old age homes and orphanages in India because of what's happening right now. He's also a filmmaker and author. He was the founding chef at Junoon, one of the best Indian restaurants in the world here in New York, and has multiple restaurants around the world. And Vikas is just somebody who will inspire the heck out of you, just the way John just did. Please join us. It's very early tomorrow. It is less than, it's exactly 12 hours from now at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Please join us and learn from Vikas tomorrow. We'll talk about food. We'll talk about filmmaking. We'll talk about the ground, what's happening on the ground in India. We'll talk about restaurants, which are under such pressure and in such deep trouble right now. You will learn a lot from following and hearing the story of Vikas Khanna. Want to remind you that we have a very special Mother's Day episode coming up next week, and we want you to join us so that you can pay tribute to your mother. We are having Thank a Mom on Mother's Day on both my New York Times read-along in the morning and the COVID-19 call at night. On Mother's Day, here's a photo of me and my mother, Lekha, and me in Japan, and our dear friend Neil Parekh on my team with that's his mother and his nephew Sanjay, and Neil's beautiful daughter Emily, and of course his handsome nephew Sanjay. And we want you to celebrate your mom, and here's how you can do it. We're going to do a shout out to her. You can read a message on the air. We can show a picture. We can have her picture mentioned in a collage. We can scroll a thank you across the screen. 50% of proceeds will go to Nick Kristoff's COVID-19 Impact Initiative. We would love to support that wonderful project that he's doing. And we will run the ad twice next Sunday on Mother's Day in America. Mother's Day varies from country to country. All you have to do is take a picture of this URL, digimentors.link/mothers, or you can just write to me, Sree at Sree.net, SREE at SREE.net. We want to thank our sponsors for this show. Community Food Bank of New Jersey fights hunger and poverty in the state of New Jersey by assisting those in need and seeking long-term solutions. Donate today at cfbnj.org. Hunger is a real problem in America. Please donate to the Community Food Bank, cfbnj.org. This ad is brought to you by Nidhi Sinha. What a generous gesture on her part to support our show and to get the word out about cfbnj.org. We're also brought to you by my friends at Muckrack and Muckrack Academy. mrac.co/media, introducing Muckrac's Fundamentals of Media Relations, a free, on-demand 2-hour course and certification. Media Relations, Public Relations, free course, mrac.co/media, mrac.co/media. Please take a look and enroll today. We are also supported by Pajama Program. For each $10 donation made, Pajama Program will deliver a new pair of pajamas and a book to support a child of an essential worker. Donate today. Go to this link, bit.ly/pajama1, 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 a chance to support the child of an essential worker. Just $10 makes a difference, folks. And if you would like to advertise in any of our programs, look at our great advertising rates that we offer. And you're doing this not necessarily to raise funds, you're doing this to raise awareness. There are so many nonprofits and individuals you could support. Next week, you can support your mother or a mother figure in your life, an aunt, a grandmother, someone, a neighbor, and we hope you will support them on Mother's Day. Sree@sree.net is my email address. And that's it, folks. I'm so grateful to all of you. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Sreenet, youtube.com/Sreenet. You will learn a lot about the kind of guests I've been getting. We've done more than 50 programs, as you know, and this is a chance to catch up with so many inspiring, exciting, interesting, engaging stories. I also want to show you another fun way you can keep in touch with me is through my WhatsApp, not group, but WhatsApp alert. So what this is a chance for you to just hold your phone up and get this QR code and get on a WhatsApp alert. This is not your racist uncle's WhatsApp group. This is just an alert system. You'll get an alert that I'm online, and you'll know that because the times vary across the world. You'll know that if you join. So just go use your phone right now and go grab that QR code, and that's so easy to do. Thanks very much, everybody. We're looking for ideas. We're looking for guests. We're looking for themes. We're looking for sponsors. Please do support us as you have been doing already. Hit share right now. Tag a friend right now, someone who would benefit from seeing this message that John O'Leary brought us. What an inspiring young man, I call him. He's only 43, and what he's done to change the world and help so many people. We are blessed in many, many ways, and we don't know it. We don't acknowledge it, and we should. And that's one of the things that he has told us. Please check out readinawe.com. readinawe.com. And a reminder of our other shows that we have for you. Every single Sunday, we have a show called our New York Times Read Along. Today, our guest was the former Detroit bureau chief of the New York Times, Mickey Maynard, who turns out to be a big Bollywood fan and a big lover of Indian food. You can find this in my YouTube channel. Again, you can find the recording of that. We have had so many great guests on that show, including we went to the home of the print editor of the New York Times, Tom Jolly. We went to the home of the travel editor of the New York Times, Amy Vershup. We went online with Stacey Stewart, president and CEO of the March of Dimes, and Sunny Slaughter, guest on 1619 Project, incredible lady and supporter of the show. And we went virtually to the home in New Jersey of Harlan Coben, author and Netflix producer. So that's just an example of the shows we have. And meanwhile, this show, the daily COVID-19 call, which is on Scroll.in, incredible organization. They cover news, culture, and analysis of India like no one else. And I'm hoping more and more of Indian America. Thank you for your support. A big shout out to Rose Horowitz 31 on Twitter and Vandana_Menon on Twitter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's the best way to keep in touch. And if you need anything, if I can help you in any way, Sree@Sree.net, SREE@SREE.net. If you want to host your own talk show like this, we have a team that's launching talk shows right now for other folks. You have a book launch. You have something you'd like to get out in the world. You have a conference that you have to postpone. Don't. Call me. We'll help you virtualize them, make them online, and make them not better, but different and in a way very engaging. There's nothing like being in a space with people. I miss it terribly. That's why I do the show. People say the show is uplifting. People say the show is inspiring, but this is for me, the uplifting thing that I do and you all provide that love. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to everybody. Good luck and good night, everybody. Please stay in touch. I see the comments are, Anju, I saw this comment, so I have to respond. Anju says, I want to work, but don't know how to do it. I'm going to be doing more work, Anju, around helping people who are either looking for work or they themselves are already working but are not feeling inspired. And part of the reason I do this, go back onto my YouTube and look at my conversations I've had every Sunday. We do this positivity night, and we've had so much inspiration. And I'm sorry you're feeling unmotivated. It's okay. There is no playbook, as John said, for any of this. This is all new to us. We're all learning together. So thank you very much. I wish the very best of health and luck to all of you. And please keep in touch. Sree at Sree.net, at Sree on Twitter, at SreeNet on Instagram, and on YouTube, SreeNet. Thanks very much, everybody. We're saying good night and see you soon.